It is a sin. Those 3 words haunted the room, spoken by one lover to the other in a moment of panic and shame. But the echo of a lifetime of teaching couldn't compete with the electric truth of a first kiss. How do you choose between the love that saved you and the faith that raised you? For 2 of the roommates, this was the question that defined their existence, while their counterparts fought to show them that the 2 didn't have to be at war. Their story is a heartbreaking and thrilling journey of building a new kind of covenant, one based not on ancient rules, but on the sacredness of a chosen family. The Dormitory of Secret Hearts. Chapter 1. The Assignment. The University of Bologna, the oldest in the Western world, smelled of ancient stone, damp parchment, and the nervous excitement of 1,000 new students. For Nina Rossi, it was a sanctuary away from her small, devout village in Calabria, yet also a test of faith. Her cross, a simple silver pendant, felt heavy against her collarbone as she clutched her room assignment slip. Room 307. She would be sharing with 3 others. Please, God, she prayed silently, let them be decent, quiet girls. Sloane Chen, on the other hand, bounded up the worn marble stairs with the energy of a Labrador puppy. Her suitcase, covered in stickers from various human rights campaigns, bumped against each step. She was from Milan, and her worldview was as expansive and modern as the city's skyline. Room 307 sounded perfect. Jules Cohen moved with a deliberate grace, her dark curls framing a face that was both serene and intensely observant. She carried a well-worn copy of the Torah alongside her philosophy textbooks. Bologna was a world away from her tight-knit Jewish community in Rome, and the prospect of 3 roommates was daunting. Her grandmother's warning echoed in her ears, "Stay true to yourself, Judith. The world will try to change you." Beatrice Moretti found them all first. She was already in the room, having claimed the bed by the window, her things, a mix of art supplies and vintage novels, neatly organized. Beatrice possessed a calm, grounding presence, her smile warm and immediate. When Sloane burst in, followed by a hesitant Nina and a reserved Jules, she became the unofficial welcomer. "Looks like we're family for the year," Beatrice said, her voice like honey. "I'm B.A. That's Sloane, I presume," she added, nodding at the sticker-covered suitcase. The first weeks were a delicate dance of coexistence. Nina attended Mass every Sunday morning, the ritual a comforting anchor. Jules would often be gone on Friday evenings and Saturdays, observing Shabbat. Sloane and Beatrice, unburdened by such strictures, explored the city's nightlife and cafe culture, often inviting the other 2, who always politely declined. Nina found Sloane baffling. She was loud, opinionated, and wore her heart on her sleeve. She debated professors with a fierce joy and had a laugh that could fill the entire corridor. Nina, who had been taught that modesty and quiet deference were virtues, couldn't help but be secretly fascinated by such unapologetic existence. Jules, to Beatrice's eyes, was a beautiful enigma. There was a deep, quiet strength to her, a piety that was not meek but powerful. Beatrice, an art history major, saw in Jules the subject of a Renaissance painting, all soulful eyes and graceful lines. She felt a pull, an urge to unravel the mystery, but respected the invisible wall Jules had built. The room itself became a character in their story. By day, it was a hub of studying and shared meals. By night, it was a chamber of 4 distinct lives, separated only by the thin fabric of their bed curtains. Chapter 2. The First Touch. It happened during a thunderstorm that rattled the old window panes. The power flickered and died, plunging room 307 into darkness broken only by flashes of lightning. Nina had always been terrified of storms. In her childhood home, they felt like the wrath of God. "You okay, Nina?" Sloane's voice came from the adjacent bed, soft in the dark. I don't like lightning," Nina admitted, her voice small. "Come here," Sloane said simply. Hesitantly, Nina slipped out of her bed and under the curtain into Sloane's. The space was small, and they lay facing each other, a respectful distance between them. Sloane's presence was a surprising comfort. She didn't offer empty platitudes, she just talked. She talked about the science of lightning, about a summer she spent in the Alps, about her 2 mothers back in Milan. Nina listened, her fear subsiding, replaced by a strange, warm curiosity. As they drifted back to sleep, the storm abating, Nina turned over. In the deep unconsciousness of sleep, her arm draped across Sloane's waist, her hand resting lightly on the curve of her hip. Nina woke at dawn. The first thing she registered was not the light, but the feeling. Her palm was pressed against the soft cotton of Sloane's sleep shirt, the firm warmth of Sloane's body radiating through it. A jolt, like the lightning from the night before, shot through her. It was not fear. It was something else, something terrifyingly pleasant. A feeling of rightness, of completeness, that she had never felt before, not even in prayer. She snatched her hand back as if burned, her heart hammering against her ribs. Shame, hot and immediate, washed over her. This is a sin. This feeling is a sin. She scurried back to her own bed, pulling the covers over her head, praying for forgiveness. But the memory of that simple touch, the electric comfort of it, was seared into her skin. Chapter 3: The Unspoken Pull. For Nina, everything changed after that night. The comfortable coexistence became a minefield of forbidden feelings. She found herself watching Sloane, the way she bit her lip when concentrating, the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled, the effortless grace of her movements. Every casual touch, a hand on the shoulder as Sloane passed by, their fingers brushing when sharing a book, sent a thrill of guilt and desire through Nina. She began going to church more often, confessing the impure thoughts to a faceless priest through the screen, performing penance with a fervor that bordered on desperation. But the prayers felt hollow. The image that brought her peace was not the crucifix, but the memory of Sloane's face in the morning light. Meanwhile, a different tension was brewing between Jules and Beatrice. Beatrice had taken to drawing in the evenings, and often, her subject was Jules. She'd capture the curve of her neck as she read, the intensity in her eyes during a debate. "Why do you always draw me?" Jules asked one evening, her voice not accusatory, but curious. "Because you're beautiful," Beatrice said, her tone matter-of-fact. It was the truth, plain and simple. Jules blushed, a deep crimson that spread to her ears. No one had ever said that to her so directly. In her community, beauty was acknowledged, but not in such a personal, intimate way. It felt thrilling. "It's not appropriate," Jules murmured, looking away. "Why?" Beatrice challenged gently. "Is beauty not a gift to be appreciated?" Jules had no answer that didn't sound like her grandmother's voice. She found herself seeking out Beatrice's company, drawn to her unwavering acceptance. They began studying together in the library, walks through the porticos becoming a daily ritual. Beatrice spoke of love as a universal force, limitless and boundless. Jules listened, her own carefully constructed world beginning to crack. Chapter 4: The Breaking Point. The climax came during the university's cultural festival. Sloane had dragged them all to a debate on LGBTQ+ rights in Italy. Nina sat rigidly, every word feeling like a personal attack on her soul. The speaker talked about love, family, and acceptance. Afterwards, back in their room, the tension exploded. "It's all a sin," Nina said, her voice trembling, more to convince herself than anyone else. "The Bible is clear. Marriage is between a man and a woman." Sloane stared at her, hurt and anger warring in her eyes. "So the love my mothers have, the family they built for me, that's a sin. The love I feel is a sin." The word hung in the air. "The love I feel." Nina's resolve shattered. The months of repression, of guilt, of secret longing, burst forth. "Yes," she cried. "It is. And these feelings I have when I'm near you, they're a sin too. A test from God that I'm failing." The room went silent. Jules looked down, her own conflicted heart pounding. Beatrice watched, her eyes full of sorrow. Sloane took a step back, Nina's confession hitting her not as a rejection, but as a tragedy. "Oh, Nina," she whispered. "The only sin is denying who you are." Nina fled, spending the night on a pew in a cold, empty church, begging a silent God for an answer that wouldn't come. Chapter 5: The First Kiss. Nina avoided Sloane for a week, moving through the dorm like a ghost. The absence of Sloane's laughter, the avoidance of her gaze, was a physical pain. It was Jules who finally confronted her, in the quiet of the library. "You're hurting, Nina," Jules said softly. "And you're hurting Sloane. What would you know about it?" Nina snapped, then immediately regretted it. I'm sorry, Jules. It's just, my faith. I understand faith, Jules said, her voice steady. I also understand that the Torah teaches compassion, and that God created every one of us. Do you truly believe He would create a heart only to condemn it for how it loves? The question echoed in Nina's mind. That night, she found Sloane sitting by the river, throwing stones into the dark water. I'm sorry, Nina said, her voice raw. Sloane didn't look up. For what? For what you feel, or for saying it? For hurting you. For being afraid. Nina sat beside her. I don't know what's right anymore. All I know is that when I'm not near you, it feels like I can't breathe. Sloane turned to her then, her eyes glistening in the moonlight. The space between them crackled with unspoken words, with months of suppressed desire. Slowly, giving Nina every chance to pull away, Sloane leaned in. Their lips met, a tentative, gentle touch that held the weight of Nina's entire world shifting. It was not a sin. It was a baptism. It was the most honest prayer she had ever offered. Chapter 6: A Secret World. Nina and Sloane entered into a secret world. Their love was a hidden language of stolen kisses in empty classrooms, intertwined fingers under library tables, and nights where Nina would slip into Sloane's bed, their bodies fitting together as if designed for one another. For Nina, it was a rebirth. The guilt did not vanish, but it was slowly being eclipsed by a joy so profound it felt sacred. Simultaneously, Jules was losing her battle. A walk with Beatrice in the Giardini Margherita had turned into a confession under a weeping willow tree. I think about you all the time, Jules, Beatrice had said, her hand gently brushing a curl from Jules's forehead. It's more than friendship. I know it is. Jules had trembled, every teaching, every warning screaming in her head. But when she looked into Beatrice's honest, loving eyes, the screams faded into a distant whisper. I think about you, too, she admitted, the words feeling both terrifying and liberating. Their first kiss was different from Nina and Sloane's, softer, a question and an answer all at once. For Jules, it felt like coming home to a place she never knew existed. Room 307 became a sanctuary within a sanctuary. By day, they were 4 students. By night, 2 pairs of lovers whispered their love in the dark, their shared secret binding them together in an unbreakable pact. Chapter 7: The World Intrudes. The bliss could not last. Second year brought increasing pressure from their families. Nina's mother called weekly, asking if she'd met a nice Catholic boy. She spoke of a cousin's upcoming wedding, dropping hints about a suitable young man from their village. For Jules, the pressure was even more direct. Her parents announced they had found a good match for her, a young man from a respectable Jewish family in Rome. They expected her to meet him during the summer break. The reality of their situation crashed down upon them. Their secret love, which had felt so vast and powerful within the walls of their dorm, was fragile in the face of society. What are we going to do? Jules whispered one night, the 4 of them huddled together, the weight of the future pressing down. It was Beatrice, the pragmatic artist, who voiced the terrifying, thrilling idea. We don't hide. We build our own future. Together. The idea was audacious. A plan began to form, born of desperation and profound love. They would finish their degrees. They would become financially independent. And then, they would not just come out. They would declare their love to the world in the way society understood best. They would have weddings. Chapter 8: The Pact. The next 2 years were a masterclass in dual lives. Nina and Jules became experts at deflecting their family's questions, their voices steady even as their hearts ached with the deception. Sloane and Beatrice worked tirelessly, taking on extra jobs and internships, building a financial safety net for their future. Their love was their fuel. Nina and Sloane's relationship was a fire, passionate, argumentative at times, but always burning bright. Jules and Beatrice's was a deep, steady river, calm, nurturing, and endlessly strong. They graduated with a mixture of triumph and terror. The safety net of university was gone. Now, they had to face the world. Nina returned to Calabria, the cross around her neck feeling like a lie. She tried to be the daughter they expected, But her heart was in Milan with Sloane. When her mother mentioned the nice boy again, Nina knew she couldn't do it. She couldn't live a lie. She left after a tense, tear-filled week, her mother's cries of "you're throwing your life away on a sin" ringing in her ears. Jules's meeting with the prospective groom was a disaster. He was kind, handsome, and perfect. And being near him felt utterly wrong. She couldn't envision a life with him, sharing a bed, building a family. The image that came to mind was Beatrice, laughing, her head thrown back, sunlight catching her hair. Jules called it off, giving her parents a vague excuse about focusing on her career. The disappointment on their faces was a wound that would not heal. Chapter 9. The Weddings. The plan was set in motion from a small apartment in Florence they all shared. Nina and Sloane would be first. They found a progressive, non-denominational minister and a small venue overlooking the Tuscan hills. The guest list was tiny, a few brave friends from university. Nina wore a simple white dress. As she walked towards Sloane, who stood radiant in a tailored suit, she felt no fear, only a peace that surpassed all understanding. This was her truth. This was her grace. When they exchanged vows, written from the depths of their hearts, the love in the room was palpable, a force that felt more holy than any scripture. The suspense for Jules and Beatrice, however, was far from over. An arranged marriage was unthinkable, but a public wedding would cause an irrevocable rift with Jules's family. So, they devised a different kind of arrangement, their own. Beatrice proposed the idea. "Let's have a private ceremony. Just the four of us. It will be our truth. Then, we will tell our families we are partners, but we will do it slowly, on our own terms. Our marriage doesn't need their paperwork to be real." It was a compromise between revolution and tradition. Jules agreed. Their arranged lesbian marriage was not arranged by families, but by their own hearts. They chose a secluded spot on the coast of Sancté at sunrise. There were no officiants, no rings. They stood on the cliff edge, the sea roaring below, and pledged their lives to each other, their words carried away by the wind, a sacred secret between them, Nina and Sloane. Chapter 10. The Aftermath and the Beginning. The fallout was as brutal as they had feared. Nina's family disowned her. The letters from her mother were filled with pleas and Bible verses, each one a fresh cut. Jules's parents were colder, a silence more devastating than shouts. They had lost a daughter to a world they could not comprehend. There were moments of despair, nights where Jules would cry in Beatrice's arms, or Nina would question if the price of her happiness was too high. But they had each other. Their unconventional family of four became their fortress. The thrilling twist of their story was not in the confrontation, but in the slow, quiet resilience that followed. They built a life. Sloane became a successful human rights lawyer, fighting for the recognition they themselves were denied. Beatrice opened a small gallery. Nina, after a long spiritual journey, found a progressive Christian community that embraced her. Jules began writing, her work exploring the intricate tapestry of faith and identity. And their love stories, born in a secret dormitory room, continued to unfold. Years later, on the anniversary of their clifftop pledge, Jules and Beatrice finally had a public celebration. This time, Jules's parents, after years of silence and gradual, difficult conversations, were in attendance. They did not fully understand, but they saw the deep, abiding love between their daughter and Beatrice. It was not a victory, but a fragile, hard-won peace. That evening, the four women, Nina and Sloane, Jules and Beatrice, sat on the terrace of their shared home, watching the sun set over the Florentine hills. Their journey had been fraught with suspense, terror, and immense pain. But as Nina leaned her head on Sloane's shoulder, and Jules laced her fingers through Beatrice's, they knew the greatest thrill was not in the struggle, but in the quiet, everyday miracle of loving and being loved, against all odds.